They have used those laws to chase blank checks for lawyer money, turning the process itself into a weapon. If I chose not to stand up, this same bad dream could happen to any business owners, families, or even those of you watching this video. The face of the Diesel brothers, a man known for building huge trucks and living life without limits, has just been taken into custody. David Sparks, the man everyone knows as Heavy D, was arrested by federal agents. This was not a surprise raid. It was the explosive end to a long and bitter fight. A fight that had millions of dollars, powerful accusations, and a judge who finally ran out of patience. But how did the king of diesel trucks end up in a jail cell? And what does his best friend, Diesel Dave, have to say about it all? The story behind the headlines is way more shocking than you can imagine. A star in custody. The day it all came crashing down was October 7th, 2025. On that Tuesday, federal marshals moved in. They were not there to talk. They were there to carry out a direct order from frail order a federal judge. A bench warrant had been issued for the arrest of David Sparks 5 days earlier on October 2nd. The charge was contempt of court. This means the judge believed Heavy D was openly and repeatedly not following the court's orders. For fans who only saw the larger-than-life personality on TV, the image was shocking. Heavy D, the man who built unstoppable machines, was being booked into the Salt Lake County Jail. The freedom he showed on his show was gone, replaced by the harsh reality of a jail cell. This was not a simple fine he had failed to pay. This was the end result of years of legal battles and ignored commands from the court. The judge had found him in contempt more than a year earlier, on June 24, 2024, for failing to pay what he owed. This arrest was the final step after all other tries to get him to follow the rules had failed. His lawyer, Cole Cannon, was quick to speak out. He wanted to control the story before it got out of hand. He told the press that Mr. Sparks was not arrested for a crime. He said the Ola Emmett's arrest was part of a civil matter. He blamed overly aggressive environmental lawyers who were trying to collect their fees. This statement right away drew a line in the sand. On one side was Heavy D, the victim of a broken system. On the other were hungry lawyers. But the court documents told a much different story. They painted a picture of a man who had been given chance after chance for years to follow the rules. This arrest was not the beginning of the story, it was the end of a very long road. And to understand how we got here, we have to go back to the very beginning. The long road to a cell. The whole thing started years ago, way back in 2017. It did not begin with the government or the EPA. It began with a group of doctors in Utah. They called themselves Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment, or UPHE for short. These were not lawyers or politicians. They were doctors who saw the effects of air pollution on their patients every single day. They saw the asthma, the heart problems, and the lung disease in their communities. And they believed they knew one of the major causes. They pointed their finger directly at the Diesel brothers. Their lawsuit made a serious claim. They said Heavy D and his companies were breaking a major federal law called the Clean Air Act. The doctors said the Diesel brothers were deliberately taking important pollution control equipment off of their diesel trucks. They were accused of installing illegal parts called defeat devices. These parts were designed to trick the truck's computer and bypass the systems that keep the air clean. Why would they do this? To create the signature look that made them famous. The thick black clouds of smoke pouring out of the exhaust pipes. This is a practice known as rolling coal. It looked impressive on camera, but the doctors said it was incredibly dangerous. They said that when you strip the pollution controls off a modern diesel truck, it becomes a monster. It can release more than 30 times the pollution compared to a normal truck. That is a 3,000% increase in harmful chemicals for just one vehicle. To prove their point, the doctors did something clever. They went out and bought a truck that had been modified by Sparks Motors. They did not just look at it. They took it to an independent lab to have it tested. The results were shocking. The tests confirmed that the truck was producing 36 times more pollution than a stock truck. It was also pumping out 21 times more particulate matter. These are the tiny, invisible particles that get deep into your lungs and cause serious health problems. The doctors were horrified. One of them, Dr. Brian Moench, called these modified trucks disease-generating machines. He said they were contributing to everything from heart attacks and strokes to cancer and even birth defects. The battle lines were drawn. It was the celebrity truck builders versus the community doctors, and the fight for clean air was just getting started. But what happened next in court would set the stage for Heavy D's eventual arrest years down the line. Years of defeat. Heavy D and his team did not back down. They fought the lawsuit hard, but the court system did not see things their way. The legal losses began to pile up one after another, creating a mountain of trouble for the Diesel brothers. The first major blow came in June of 2018. A judge looked at the evidence and issued an injunction. An injunction is a very serious court order. It is not a suggestion, it is a command. The judge commanded the Diesel brothers to stop all of their illegal modifications. They were forbidden from removing pollution controls and selling defeat devices. But the doctors group said they did not stop. They even accused them of selling one of their most famous trucks, called the Holy Grail, after the judge's order was already in place. The legal battle continued, and things only got worse. In March of 2020, the case reached its peak. U.S. District Judge Robert J. Shelby made his final ruling. He found that Heavy D and his co-defendants were liable. He said they had violated the Clean Air Act hundreds of times. The punishment was a massive fine. The judge ordered them to pay a total of $850,000 in penalties. The money was not just a punishment. Part of it, about $90,000, was ordered to go to Davis County in Utah. It was meant to fund a program to find and fix other diesel trucks that had been illegally tampered with. This should have been the end of it, but it was not. Heavy D and his team decided to appeal the decision. They took their case to a higher court, the 10th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. They hoped this court would see things differently and throw out the fine, but the appeal backfired badly. Not only did they lose the appeal, but the court added even more financial pain. In March of 2021, on top of the $850,000 fine, the judge ordered them to pay the doctors' legal fees. This was another huge amount. They were ordered to pay nearly $1 million just for the lawyers who had sued them. Now they were on the hook for almost $2 million. Then in December of 2021, the appeals court gave its final word. The judges upheld the original verdict. They agreed that the Diesel brothers had broken the law, and they used incredibly strong language to describe their actions. The court said the Diesel brothers had engaged in flagrant misconduct. This was a huge legal defeat. The court did tell the lower judge to recalculate part of the fine. They said the penalties should only be for trucks sold in Utah, not all over the country, but the main finding of guilt remained. For years after these rulings, the fines and fees went unpaid. The court kept ordering them to pay, and they kept failing to do so. Finally, on June 24, 2024, the court officially found them in contempt. This was more than a year before the arrest warrant was even issued. The court's patience was wearing thin. Heavy D was on a collision course with the law, and it was only a matter of time before something had to give. But while Heavy D was becoming the face of this legal war, many fans were asking a simple question. Where is Diesel Dave in all of this? The other brother, his name was not in the headlines about the fines. His face was not on the court documents detailing the violations. This led many people to wonder about his role in the whole mess. And here is a crucial fact that changes the whole story. David Diesel Dave Kiley was not one of the individuals named and fined in the final judgment of the Clean Air Act case. The court orders listed David Sparks, who is Heavy D, Joshua Stewart, who is Redbeard, and Caton Hoskins, known as the Muscle. Diesel Dave's name was not on that list. This raises so many questions. Did he disagree with what was happening? Was he kept out of that side of the business? We may never know for sure, but looking at his life story shows he is a very different person from his business partner. Diesel Dave's story does not start in a garage. It starts all over the country. He was born in Texas to a family that moved around a lot for his father's work. They finally settled in Utah, where Dave would spend most of his life. As a young man, he made a decision that would shape his entire world. He chose to serve a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He was sent all the way to Portugal. For 2 years he lived on his own, supported himself, and dedicated his life to sharing his faith. He learned to speak Portuguese and fell in love with the people and the culture. When he returned to Utah, he was looking for adventure, and he found it in a big way. He and 2 of his best friends flew down to Brazil. They decided to do something most people would only dream of. They bought motorcycles and decided to ride them home. Not to the next state, but all the way from Sao Paulo, Brazil, back to Salt Lake City, Utah. It was an epic journey that showed his love for the open road and for taking on huge challenges. After that incredible trip, his life was a bit unsettled. He works different jobs, driving a truck, installing siding, just enjoying life as it came. That is when he reconnected with an old friend, Dave Sparks. They had met at a church event for young single adults. Heavy D invited Diesel Dave to go out to the lake with some friends, and a legendary partnership was born. They became best friends, like brothers. Heavy D eventually hired Diesel Dave in 2008 to help him with his small construction business. And from there, they built the Diesel Sellers empire together. Before they were the Diesel Brothers, they were Landscape Brothers, Bunker Selling Brothers, and Used Car Salesman Brothers. Heavy D's path was a little different. He also grew up in Utah and showed an interest in cars from a young age, studying auto mechanics, welding, and fabrication. In high school, he went to college for 1 semester, but decided he could learn more with real-world experience. He started his own small excavation business, and that is when he hired Diesel Dave as his very first employee. Today, Diesel Dave is known as a dedicated inserting semantics man. He is married to his wife Des, and they have a daughter named Sailor Fee. He has shared on social media that his family was sealed in an LDS temple, a ceremony that Mormons believe allows families to be together forever. People who claim to know him describe him as a genuine and heartfelt guy who would rather be spending time with his kids than dealing with drama. His story is one of faith, adventure, and family. It is a stark contrast to the legal chaos that was surrounding his best friend and business partner. And that chaos was about to reach its most dramatic moment yet. The October Showdown. After 3 long days sitting in the Salt Lake County Jail, Heavy D was brought back into court for a contempt hearing. This was the moment of truth. The world was watching to see what would happen next. Would the judge keep him locked up until the money was paid, or would Heavy D find a way out? According to David Sparks himself, what happened in that courtroom was a stunning reversal. He said his lit lawyer, Cole Cannon, came prepared for war. He claims Cannon presented the judge with about 40 slides of hard evidence. Sparks said this evidence laid out exactly how the lawyers for the doctors group had been misleading the court for years. He described a powerful shift in the room. He said you could feel the change as his lawyer made his case. Then something happened. The judge called for a break in the hearing. The lawyers from both sides met and talked. When they came back, they had reached an agreement, a stipulation. Based on that agreement, the judge ordered David Sparks to be released from custody immediately. Heavy D walked out of the courthouse a free man, and he went straight to social media to declare a massive victory. He told his millions of followers that he felt fully vindicated. He posted a video explaining his side of the story with passion and anger. He said this was never about him refusing to pay money that he rightfully owed. He claimed it was about standing up to a broken system that had been hijacked by bad actors. He accused the environmental lawyers of learning how to twist the law into personal profit machines. He said they used these laws to chase blank checks of lawyers' fees, turning the process itself into a weapon. He argued that even though he won a big part of his appeal, which slashed the initial damages, the lawyer fees just kept going up. He claimed the original lawsuit was for an absurd $114 million for only about 20 trucks. He called it extortion wrapped in legal paper. He ended his message with a powerful statement that summed up his entire fight. He said this is not about clean air anymore. It is about dirty tactics. To his fans, it looked like a total win. Heavy D had taken on the system and walked away free. but the court documents revealed a small but very important detail about his release. The agreement that set him free was a stipulation about disclosures to be made by the defendants. This means he was likely released because he finally agreed to provide the financial information the court had been demanding all along. It was not a legal victory on the merits of his case, but an agreement to finally cooperate. Still, the public story was one of vindication, but just as Heavy D was celebrating this win, a secret second legal war was reaching its own devastating conclusion, and this battle was about to cost the Diesel brothers more money than they could possibly imagine. An empire under siege. While the world was focused on the Clean Air Act lawsuit, the smoke and the arrest, another legal storm was raging behind the scenes. This was a different kind of fight. It was not against a small group of doctors in Utah. It was against a global fashion giant. And this time the fight was over their very name. Back in 2019, the famous clothing brand, Diesel SPA, the company known for its high-end jeans and apparel, filed a major lawsuit against the Diesel brothers. The fashion brand was not happy. They claimed that the companies run by Barrett and Diesel Dave, specifically Diesel Power Gear and Diesel sellers, were breaking federal trademark law. The accusation was simple. The fashion company said that by selling apparel like t-shirts and hats with the word diesel on them, the Diesel brothers were creating confusion in the marketplace. They argued that when people saw a shirt that said Diesel Power Gear, they might think it was connected to the famous fashion brand. This, they said, was trademark infringement, and it was illegal. The Diesel brothers fought this lawsuit too, but just like in the Clean Air case, the court did not side with them. A judge in New York looked at the evidence and made a damning finding. The court said that the Diesel brothers had actual knowledge of the Diesel trademarks when they started using the name on their own products. Even worse, the judge noted that they kept using the name even after they received a cease and desist letter from the fashion brand's lawyers, Mediterrailing, telling them to stop. The court sided with the fashion company, and then came the punishment. The judge had to decide how much money the Diesel brothers company would have to pay for breaking the law. The final number was absolutely staggering. On September 6, 2023, the court ordered Diesel Power Gear, the company created by both Dave Sparks and Dave Kiley, to pay $11.8 million in damages to Diesel SPA. The court documents showed that Diesel Power Gear had made over $59 million in net sales from the products in question. The judge decided that making them pay the full amount would be excessive. Instead, the court reduced the amount by 80%, resulting in the final $11.8 million award. Still, this was a financial blow that made the Clean Air Act fines look small. While Heavy D was publicly fighting a battle over an $850,000 penalty, his company was privately being hit with a judgment more than 10 times. Empire was under siege from two different directions. One lawsuit attacked what they did, modifying trucks. The other lawsuit attacked who they were, their very brand name. It was a two-front war that threatened to bring everything they had built crashing to the ground. So, here is where things stand. Heavy D is out of jail, claiming victory and vowing to continue his fight against what he calls a broken system. But he is not completely free. He still has to deal with the consequences of the massive Clean Air Act judgment against him. At the same time, the entire Diesel Brothers brand, the company he built with Diesel Dave, is now on the hook for an unbelievable $11.8 million penalty in a trademark war they lost. Can their empire survive these back-to-back legal blows? And what role will Diesel Dave, the quiet partner, play in trying to rebuild the brand he helped create from nothing? One thing is for sure, the story of the Diesel brothers is far from over.